I know it's been a while. I've been managing a reorg at work, through various methods of firefighting, long hours and holding on to the promise of chocolate at Easter. Tidings to you. Isn't it curious what men endure these days? No one buys them a drink at the bar, and on dates the bill is theirs alone. They're expected to be the breadwinners while women lounge on couches with children, encouraging support and outrage groups. Custody goes to women, diversity gives them our jobs, while standing up for men seems anti-feminist. Diversity courses for men? Unlikely, but only because the minority of the men who believe this twaddle is worthwhile belong to is the one that regularly gets their heads kicked in as a precursor to leaving the pub. Some may say this is unacceptable, but I say it's a horror the world is only just now, would you believe it, showing some injustice towards men. It might feel like the world in Britain should not be able to accept that, and certainly life can be difficult for a man, old or young, in many other non-frivolous ways. Toxic masculinity is something I wish I understood enough to talk about, but I happen to be a man who feels closer kin in feminism, which is something my algorithms have clearly picked up on and therefore suppress Andrew Tate material. Maybe, they probably argue, this is the problem of kowtowing to feminism. Either it escalates the opposing points of view, or the opposition tries to join in. Which leads me nicely to the Supreme Court's ruling on the definition of a woman. I do feel sympathy for every trans person in the UK, and I absolutely do support your right to live whatever life you damn well please. Go forth with my blessing, protesting long and hard until you get your equality, helping yourself in the process to accommodation and the tepid vocal support of the Lib Dem leader. I take that same stance with everyone because that's the kind of nice, equality-minded, decent guy I am. Well, of course I exempt anyone who wishes to do others harm from that sentiment. Those arseholes can go fuck themselves. In prison if there's any justice. But even if my views will be seen in the distant future as toxic rightfulness amongst my contemporaries, I'm happy showing this no harm to others asterisks to my equality for all statement. Men have the right to be women if they want, and if you think about that decision for more than 5 minutes, about how tough it must be to admit, to commit to follow through with and uphold, you'll dismiss any idea that it's on a whim instantaneously. The cost to society is negligible, especially when compared with your average pensioner who injects nothing into society and unlikely ever will again. And it's arguably higher on the trans person because life in our society would undoubtedly be smoother if they just sucked it up, dressed themselves in a suit, watched football, drank beer, farted in front of their wives, dished out tough love to their sons, and spent their alone time masturbating in a shed. So let's dispense with the idea that they're getting anything out of society and just let them live whichever utterly inconsequential gender they choose. I'll continue to support any man that feels they ought to be a woman and any woman that feels their gender was misaligned too. The minefield of the Supreme Court's ruling is not one I envy, but lest I delay betraying my feelings any longer, I do, as you'd have probably guessed from the apologetic last paragraph, agree with the judgment that women need to be women from birth only. I wish I didn't, but I do. And so here comes my explanation in an attempt to make myself feel like I'm not a hypocrite for having previously said anyone can do whatever they please as long as it causes no others harm. That there is coherence in the not at all black and white world where I can believe trans women should be treated as women, but women by birth need to be a separate equality for now. As feminists know, the world is not fair and pretending it is helps nobody. In fact, it's a terrible idea. That's why the pushback of misogynists is so laughable. It assumes the world has been made fair and the injustice is now on men because they can no longer hump their secretary without worrying it's a setup. This is not assuming that all women are saints because they're vulnerable. Some are bastards, some are abusive, and some protesting against trans women's identities are undoubtedly doing it simply because they find trans women disgusting and are not feminists trying to protect those at risk, but the worst kind of human being, leading me to worry about how many totally unqualified men and women have the born right to bring life into this world with that attitude. Let's not forget, though, the battle women have with their bodies their whole lives, both socially, physically, monthly, and somewhat alarmingly for 9 months. Men also have uncountable representations in government and business. They're paid over 8% more on average for full-time employment in the UK, but are also more likely to have those full-time jobs too. The violence men face is largely from other men, and the violence women face is largely from, you guessed it, men. So, immediately, there's one very vital portion of society that needs protecting from another, except men tend not to dwell in houses with other violent men, do they? When reformers express concerns that a foreign minority in their area might take over It's worth remembering that women manage to make up 51% of the entire planet's population, and yet they're still treated like a minority. What's more frightening is how much this is accepted on all sides. It suggests that even after 12,000 years of humanity, if we haven't yet guaranteed the safety of the majority of our population, we shouldn't assume it going forward. By no stretch of the imagination have women ever been given an unfair advantage. We haven't even leveled the playing field yet, and history suggests that even when we do, women will still be at risk. Even I cannot deny the urge to mansplain and enjoy it. I'm doing it right now. Half of you probably didn't even notice. I'm not saying that trans women are a threat because they were born biological men, not at all. I know there have been cases like Ilsa Bryson, but their fame suggests they are exceptional. The large majority of trans women deserve sympathy and support from everyone. They deserve to be able to live with dignity, equality, and safety, as do all people. Safety might feel like a given in today's world, of course. We have surveillance nearly everywhere. Laws, courts, police, food, shelter, camera phones, Ring doorbells, Jason Bourne, medicines, health, safety, and political correctness gone mad, plus technology making all of the above better. Despite headlines and hardline politicians trying to stoke fear to the contrary, however, this is absolutely the safest time for anyone in history, and the hysterical outcry of media caused by knife or gun crimes is a result of that overwhelming safety, not its contradiction. But the absence of danger isn't the same as security, something any Trumpite reformer will confirm as a real psychological condition. Would you feel safe walking into a dark, abandoned back alley in the middle of a city? The alley poses no threats, but the potential presence of someone you don't know the convictions of might. Consider that as the feeling any person belonging to a minority feels when they enter a pub. Maybe they subconsciously count how many of their own there are there. They'd be conscious of not showing their difference, if possible, of not speaking up, if possible, and for not needing to rely on the community to have their back, if possible. Feeling safe and being perfectly self is a discrepancy of inequality, made worse by trying to engage in a community of microaggressions, biases, systemic inequalities, Nigel Farage and J.K. Rowling. In a world where we still lack the support to protect women completely, I think it's a bit too much of an ask to imagine they feel safe. Minorities need the presence of support, they need to be safe and to feel secure in their community to thrive in it. Don't get me wrong, if the Supreme Court had ruled the other way, I'd have probably written something in glowing praise of our society. But the fact it hasn't is, to me, a grim reminder that we aren't there yet. I don't think the Supreme Court's ruling is a poor reflection of trans women, but of our failure to make vulnerable people feel safe. Trans people were dealt a tricky hand at birth, the same way as a disabled person, but the difference is their difficulty when going to the bathroom is only societal, which makes me sad. One day you would hope with all our air fryers and modern convictions we will reach full equality, and maybe then we can all use the same bathrooms like the marvellous French, leaving the disabled for those truly needing the space. Then we can have the conversation again and rule that trans women's gender is female, because at that point, how the fuck would it matter? I hope this ruling only encourages the laws to make more allowances, coerces governments to enact more policy to make sure they protect and allow trans people and the whole LGBQT plus community and any minority to feel safe in who they are and what they have to offer. I hope they all stand up for each other, and as a white male bordering on middle age, I'll be proud to stand there with them. That's still in the future, one day. But today, all minorities are still needing to feel protected as they navigate their difficult life, even if they're a majority in it. Pretending otherwise for any of them in our patriarchy is a backward step, because the simple truth is, it's not fair on women, be they trans or otherwise.